Beer. Sparkling. Golden. Pure.
Live life, every golden minute of it. Enjoy Budweiser.
When you have a Labatt's, you have an adventure.
Traditions. Like the way Budweiser is brewed.
Fill the steins to dear old Maine, shout till the rafters ring.
Growing up in Ireland, you basically you pick your drink and that's your drink and that's it. And there was always three beers on tap: Guinness, Harp, and Smithwick's. There was no room for any adventure whatsoever. It was all the way you just drink it and you drink it on tap, and then if you go to a party, you bring a six-pack, and it was all very. These are the rules. This is it. You don't break the rules. And then, and over here in America at the same time, it was like, has this reputation of just having this crap beer, because people think of American beer as Bud, Miller, and Coors.
I don't mind them. I drink them sometimes when the price is right. I used to think I could tell the difference between the three, but I did a blind taste test and totally face-planted, so I have no pride about which of the three I'll drink now.
I'll drink it if I have to, but I will never drink it just because.
I used to drink the big three years and years ago, and I'm surprised they're still in business.
One of my biggest things was being consistent, and having a more consistent product. They are masters of consistency. They really, you can taste any one of their beers anywhere across the country, and it tastes exactly the same, which is great. Unfortunately, all three of their brands taste exactly the same, which I think is a little bit, of the non-creativeness that I think, we take advantage of as craft brewers. Doing more creative beers, doing more things to expand people's palates and things like that.
We get people come in here and ask us for Yingling or Miller Lite, and you have to explain to them that, that's not really what we do here.
I think they taste mostly like water.
They're just too watered down for me.
That the big three are trying to get into the craft beer and pretending to be in the craft beer, like the Blue Moon. I think that's by Coors, but like they're, oh no, it's a craft beer, and they all, oh no, this isn't one of us. This is a craft beer when it's actually made by Coors or Miller.
I enjoy a good Blue Moon. So I'm not picky in terms of I can't drink that. It's just my whole thing is don't market it as craft beer because it's technically not.
I hate the big three beers, unlike some of my friends. I can't handle them. I grew up in the Midwest. That was all we had in high school and college.
So many beers.
And so getting to get into the craft beers is so much better. So much more flavor.
Budweiser is big corporation, and I tend to not try to support that. So any chance that I could put money into smaller businesses goes right back into your community, as opposed to money going poof to people who are destroying your country.
Given a choice, it's craft beer all the time, which is not a knock on the Budweisers and Millers of the world, but it's just more flavor for me. I think it just offers more of a taste.
It's just better. Craft beer is a lot better than the generic Bud Light and Miller Lite. It's got a lot of flavor to it, and I think every beer has their own attitude.
There's a lot more opportunity for small business people to make an impact, I guess, and also it gives people the opportunity for their local community. So you can support local businesses a lot better with craft beer than you can with the big three.
I like it more. I like craft beer more. I only drink craft beer.
We're doing an artisan approach to making beers that were of a time period of, just being more creative, more aggressive with ingredients that, will lead us sometimes to be not as consistent, but also being aggressive to, you know, expand palates and do a little bit more fun things with beer.
I like the difference in the flavor, the taste. I am an IPA girl, so I like the hops. I like the bite that the craft beer brings to you.
Your choices are endless. None of the beers taste the same, and there's a million different microbreweries, and each one has their own twist on their beers.
In Philadelphia, I mean, I drink Yard's IPA or Yard's Philly Pale Ale, but you know, we got a lot of great stuff around Philly, a lot of Trogs, Flying Fish, we got Victory. There's tons of stuff in and around Philadelphia that I think a lot of things are going that way with your food trucks or your soap and your chocolates and cheeses. It's all like a small craft. Like it's going back, you know, like there was like the Industrial Revolution, and now it's like, oh, but things were better when Laura around the corner made the cheese, and that's the way it is with beer. Like
the difference in flavors that you can get, you know, you don't want to be drinking the same thing. Like if you go to the non-craft beers, they kind of all taste very similar. There are slight, subtle differences, but not really differences that most people can tell.
We try to have very much controlled growth in what we're doing, but we've really noticed it because, you know, there's a great movement for sustainability, you know, locally grown products, things like that. Anytime you see like a new restaurant or bar opening, they're taking advantage of the local flavors of things, like in their beer selection. They're always putting craft beer on. They're trying to do things from local farms and trying to do product that, you know, supports the local economy. I think that's a big thing that craft beer is really doing. It's getting people to recognize that, you know, craft beer that's made here and made in their neighborhood are people that are actually living in their neighborhood, people that are actually, you know, part of the whole environment and of being local, and it really brings that out to people, so people recognize that, and I think they want to support that.
I originally joined the craft beer club just because I like craft beer a lot. I think craft beer has become so successful because it kind of embodies like the American spirit, I guess. Nobodies are starting up their own breweries and flourishing and doing a really great job at it and producing beer that they love. If you love what you're doing, who's to stop you?
Part of it is I always wanted to have my own company. I always wanted to do something. Not really cut out for the big corporate world. I like to get stuff done, not too good with all the corporate rigmarole. So I had a friend who texted me one night and said we should start a band or open a brewery, and my response was, we don't play instruments. So I kind of narrowed it down. I told my wife that we were going to open a brewery, and she said, no, you're not. You don't know how to brew. And I said, we'll figure that out. So we dove into home brewing and really kind of, it was kind of like a light went off for me. I was like, wow, this would be really something that I would love to do. I love beer, and I should be able to brew good beer. And there's some things about the industry we just didn't know. It just seemed like if you brew great beer, people will come, but it's a lot more complicated than that. So
I started getting into craft beer business by brewing beer in my dorm room. Next thing you know, I went on a tour to a brewery, did a brewery tour, and I kept going on the tour, and I pretty much stayed on that brewery tour until they finally decided to have me start working there and hire me to be you know, a helper at the brewery. And from there I started learning more about brewing, and that's kind of how I got into the beer business.
I turned 30 and I felt desperate, and I wanted I panicked. What am I going to do? And I started taking classes at community college. And so I looked around for an opportunity to open bar. I was bartending at the McGlinchey's on 15th Street at the time. And then just eventually came across this space on what was considered a bad street, but it was still in Center City. And now the whole neighborhood has totally transformed since then. Now we're like a hip part of Restaurant Row.
You can open up a neighborhood brewery in Philadelphia and have a really good relationship with the neighborhood. Here, we've been trying to build a relationship with our community through community events, through advertising. But what I've found out in the suburbs is there's a less central word of mouth or way to communicate to people. We ask people to use Facebook. No. Do you read the Patch? No. Do you read the Reporter? No. Like, how do you get your information? Like, where do you find out stuff? So it's been very difficult for us to get that word out. We had someone in here last week who lives 2 blocks away and they've never heard of us.
Back to my business partner, Tom. He went to Belgium in 1985, and he stopped in Brussels and said, "Oh, I heard the Heineken is better here," and it's just like, it's still Orlando Heineken. And then the bartender laughed at him and said, "Oh, you want a beer?" And he poured him a bottle of Duvel, and he tasted it, and it's like, "Oh my God, this is beer." So then he said, "Oh, I want to get that." And so he started getting Belgian beers and bringing them to Philadelphia. 1995, he at Jose Pistolas, he put like 14 Belgian beers on tap, and nobody else had ever done that in America before. And so he was the leader. The influence that Tom has had on Philadelphia and the craft beer scene, it's amazing. I think it does all stem down to him. There's a lot of people, but he definitely revved it up and threw it out there.
I regret not taking advantage of the growth we could have in Philadelphia. I mean, we have been growing with it. I think that we were a little bit underfunded at a point, and I think it helped us not grow as quickly as we could have if we were a little bit more prepared for it. So I guess not being prepared for the growth that was about to happen, and that's a big part of the only thing I really regret about this. Other than that, I mean, beer business is awesome. It's a great business to be in.
We went a year without brewing an IPA, basically because everybody has an IPA. Everybody starts out with an IPA. Everybody starts out with a wheat beer, and we wanted to be different. And that was great and cute for like 3 months, and then people just didn't want a black IPA in July. So we probably should have listened to our distributors a little bit more and followed their lead and said, here's what you should be making. As we've been doing that and we've been talking to the people who sell our beer, it's been a lot smoother in terms of getting beer into bars and getting them on tap. But we were, dare say, a little arrogant to start out with what we could sell. We make good beer, but reality is certain beers sell better at certain times. The older breweries, they're all very eager to help. Last week, I was on the phone with Bill Kowaleski from Victory talking about something. I called Tom Kehoe at Yard several times to address issues that we have. Artie Tafoya, who's the owner of Appalachian Brewing Company. I mean, these guys are I have their cell phone numbers. I text them. Damian Malfara from Old Forge. We talk usually like once a month. So everybody's really kind of, if you're nice to them and everybody's working together, they tend to work with you.
Well, the biggest challenge was being consistent. We joked that we were doing such a live product that all of our beer was cask conditioned, that it was going to be a little bit different every time. It's usually a little bit different every time as you drink the cask down. The beer changes a little bit, sometimes gets a little bit more hoppy because there's hops in there, things like that. But I think really consistently, having that same product out there was definitely the biggest challenge.
It's actually really not hard to clone a beer. Most brewers, if they taste someone's beer like Hop Devil or Love's Chocolate Stout or one of those beers, it's really easy to taste the beers and come up with a recipe that will mimic it, but we try not to do that because we try to put our own spin on it. So that's kind of how you design a beer recipe. At the same time, we have a pub here, so it's really great for doing some test runs, what works. We can brew smaller batches, half batches, and kind of get it out there. I know Victory does that. There's a lot of breweries that really just have pub-only beers until they take off, and then they'll start to produce them for the mass public.
There's Fergie's Pub, I would just give it to, and Monk's Cafe, and they're both they're very different. The people who go to Monk's are people from all around the world, or all over the country, who might be flying in just to go to Monk's for the afternoon to drink great beer. It has a massive beer selection, and people respect and love Monk's, and they give it the respect it deserves. But it's up there on a pedestal. But so it's a very different thing to hear.
I think just growing this company to be a 50+ person company, and that everybody has a real ownership in the company. They really feel as though this is Yards and I'm a part of the Yards family. And I think that's my biggest accomplishment, more than winning an award, more than just accolades or anything like that. Just having a great family here that really is part of the Yards culture.
But really, the pub is where the bulk of our money is coming from right now. So that's really kind of nurturing that, adding menu items and we still don't have a fryer, still don't have a grill, so we're not a full-service restaurant, but we're trying to do as best we can. So that's the short term. The near term is we've been expanding. We're now opening up. We're in Jersey. We'll be opening up in South Jersey next month. We have distribution in the Trenton area, and we're adding all the way out as far as Center County up near Happy Valley.
In the next few years, we're planning on maxing out this facility. Hopefully, we're going to either be adding an additional facility or moving to a whole new one that'll just produce a little bit more beer. We plan on growing. We plan on growing as long as craft beers are growing, and we want to be Philly's hometown beer.
I think that they are beginning to become aware of craft beer more so than previous years. There's still the always typical college students who go to events for $1 Bud Lights. My first craft beer was Victory Summer Love, and I drank it in the middle of the summer and it was perfect. So I think kind of lighter beers like that, like Victory Summer Love, not so heavy. As I'm kind of progressing in my craft beer life, I'm liking IPAs a lot more.
I'm definitely gonna stray with the porters, the thick stouts. I like, those heavy beers.
Some of my favorites would probably be Southern Tier Creme Brulee Stout. And one of my favorites is Left-Handed Milk Stout Nitro.
We get all sorts. We have some really great regulars, people that come in different nights, especially when we do our jazz night. Wednesdays, we have a group of like 6 to 10 people that come in, just love to listen to the jazz, have a few beers, and just chill. So we'll see a lot more regulars during the week, and then today and especially tomorrow we'll get a lot more people who are traveling. They've heard about us, they want to check us out. They're either coming from out of the area or they're driving a couple 10, 20 miles to come up and check us out.
So I also drink one of my favorite beers is Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, in bottle.
I usually drink IPAs, given my druthers. Some of my favorites are like Long Trail and Sierra Nevada.
IPA, some real good stouts. Really, I'm a fan of certain breweries. Like right now, I like 6 Point, Obligong. I've been trying a lot of their different brews, and they're always coming out with something new, so they keep it interesting.
I think the great thing about yards and the people that come in here is absolutely everybody does. I mean, you got college guys coming to do a tour for the weekend to learn more about beer that are actually home brewers themselves. You have people that don't really know anything about craft beer, but you know what? They're in town. They want to do a tour of something. They want to get a little bit more of Philadelphia, and we definitely provide that. We have a great culture here, and I think everybody from the bartender to the packaging line guy really knows how to talk about the beer. They really like the beer, and they like to talk about yards and how we got started and things like that.
When you're given quality, oh, I can't go back to drinking this crap after I've tasted this. That was
I think it's doing good right now. I think it's going to stay that way. They're just going to keep being more people trying different things. More people, smaller groups are going to make different beers, and they're going to help everybody out trying to get new taste out there.
I think it's going to continue to get bigger, and I think the big beer companies are definitely going to take a hit.
I think it's definitely going to take off more than in the last couple of years. A lot of people have been experimenting with a lot of different types of things, and I feel like people are still trying to push it to the limit, so I'm excited to see what else is out there. I've visited a lot of different breweries and seen a lot of different things, so I'm excited to see what else everybody's going to put out there.
I think whatever is cheapest will probably always prevail, just because college students aren't the most budget savvy, and they don't want to spend that extra amount of money on good beer. I do think that the attitude is kind of changing, though, for the better. It's only kind of in its beginning stages, and I mean, thousands of breweries are opening up across the country.
I mean, I think it's wonderful. The growth is still in the double-digit range. I hear a lot of people talking about a bubble bursting, and I don't really see a bubble. I read up a lot about it because obviously it's my business, it's my industry. There's still room for a brew pub in every town. That's still very much attainable. And we're still only at the level of craft breweries that we had pre-Prohibition.
I think it's not quite at its pinnacle yet, and I think there's a lot more room for improvement and quality and refining the process and flavor.
I think craft beer is just like an evolving market. Like, a long time ago it was all
all the beers taste the same, and everybody, as time's gone on, more people have been just brewing different kinds of things and trying new things. So I think the sky's the limit for craft beer.
I see it becoming as popular as wine tours to Napa Valley. I see it overtaking the wine snobs.
I think realize what your vision is on what you want to do with your brewing career or what you want to do with brewing, and absolutely go for it and stick to your guns. Do exactly what you planned on doing from the beginning and let that take you forward into the future. You'll be adjusted along the way by different factors that happen, whether you need to invest more money, whether you need to put up a lighter beer because all your beers are really strong, but you'll be pointed in the right direction. Keep realizing your original dream and keep pushing through on that.
Just keep drinking it. Try it again. Try it on draft. Keep experimenting, because you might find that sometimes the brewer made a mistake and sometimes the craft beer drinker's just not tasting right. So my hope and wish for the craft beer drinker is to keep trying the beers.
I think craft beer is here to stay. It's not like wine coolers, it's not a fad or anything like that. I think craft beer is really going to become more localized. I think you're going to see less beers coming in from across the country in California that are going to be wanting to be national brands. I think the local brands are going to take the lion's share of the local economy, and I think that's really going to be prevalent. I think the breweries that are trying to go across the country are going to have some sort of a niche to do that. So they're going to have some special product or thing like that that's going to separate them from everybody else besides the national brands. And those national brands will fight each other out for the national taps in a local economy. So I think it's going to be a lot more localized. I mean, you're going to be the local beer, you're going to be the beer. So I think that'll be really great.
Once again, let every loyal main man sing, and drink to all the happy hours, drink to the careless days, drink to Maine, our alma mater.